and for joining us on This Week with Sabir. And today's hot seat is Maribel Lara. She's the SVP of Head of Consulting at the Sasha Group. And if you guys don't know what Sasha Group is, actually it's one of the companies by Gary Vaynerchuk as part of VaynerX. So she's an SVP there. She has been with Vayner since 2014, and her roles have included and has changed over the years. Since the very 2014 was very early days of VaynerMedia, so that you've seen it gone through quite a bit of growth there. She's worked alongside Gary Vaynerchuk, executed a lot of growth strategies, helped actually with a lot of the growth of the company to the point now that she partners with James Orsini, who you guys have seen me interview on the show. So phenomenal person. I mean, one of the people that I really respect, and having worked alongside Maribel at VaynerMedia, she's a phenomenal lady, and she's going to actually share a lot of great insights about the Latinx on women entrepreneurship, and she's involved in a lot of different types of causes and knows a lot of great people. Well, Maribel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How do I live up to that introduction, Sabir?
I do the easy stuff first, and then it gets harder, So I know you very well. I read your bio a little bit. I would like to start with, and this is the easiest pitch of the game. It's funny that I use baseball metaphor because I don't watch baseball. I don't watch any of the sports, but I use it on the show that it's the easiest pitch of the game. Tell us a bit about yourself. Maybe even including like how did you get ended up in 2014 at VaynerMedia? What was that like? Because everybody has a Gary Vaynerchuk / VaynerMedia story if they've worked there.
Well, so let's see. I'll go backwards, but my VaynerMedia story is funny enough that I didn't come to VaynerMedia because of Gary, believe it or not. Right? Like I knew of Gary. I started in social media marketing in 2009 out of a full-time MBA program. I used to work in higher education. So I used to work at colleges and universities, primarily focused on student leadership development. So I have a master's in education. I worked in higher education for 8 years. I moved up the ladder pretty quickly. So I was acting director of a college activities office here in the city at a pretty prominent college. And I was moving up the ladder, and I got a taste of what it was like to run that department. And I realized that if I kept moving up that ladder, I was actually going to be moving away from the thing that I loved most about working in education. And that was like one-to-one working with students. And so it was, I sort of had to look at like where I was about to turn 30. And I was like, well, I'm supposed to want to grow in my career, especially living in New York City. Like I should want to make more money because working in education, like this is not going to be sustainable in my future, but I also want to continue loving what I do. And so it was time for me to sort of think through like my pivot and whether or not I wanted to do something else. And I did a skills assessment and recognized that marketing would be a really good fit for me, given that I had strong communication skills and loved the area of communications. And then I was incredibly fascinated by the early years of social media. By virtue of, I was at an Ivy League institution. And so I was in that second wave of people who had access to Facebook, how quickly it was changing the way that my students were communicating with each other and the way that they were promoting events on campus. And I was like, there's something here. Like this thing is not going to go away. It's going to change communication. And I was totally right. So I went to grad school for my MBA during a time where you could not take a class focused on social media, right? You're just starting to see digital media classes like on the curriculum, but the space was changing so quickly, it was hard to find those. So I would incorporate social into internships and projects wherever I could. I graduated in 2009, and I had to start out as a freelancer because I graduated into the recovery of the recession, right? So talk about entrepreneurship. Like my start in marketing was as an entrepreneur because the market was tough. I was a career shifter, which made me, less than ideal. And I was trying to find these really niche jobs in social media marketing when there was no paid advertising in social media. So I had to start as an entrepreneur if I wanted to do that thing. And I had to work other jobs to pay the bills because the entrepreneurship component wasn't going to bring in enough. In about a year and a half, I had enough of a robust portfolio that I got my foot in the door as a freelancer in the agency world. One of those agencies that I freelanced with hired me on full time, and that's where I was recruited to Vayner from one of those places. So I knew of Gary, but Gary was very divisive, as I think he still is, right? Like people love him or they hate him. And that was very much the case in those early days, right? People were still questioning whether or not like social media sold things. And he was, we had no way to prove it in those early days, but he believed it because he had used it in his family business. Gary is the reason I have stayed at VaynerMedia, right? And it's because philosophically, in terms of business, but more importantly, like in terms of EQ, we match, right? Like he is a good person. He has built an overwhelmingly positive culture. I have had space to grow. Like my work has been appreciated. I have felt seen. And so that has kept me within the VaynerX world as long as this.
Very cool. The it's funny. Everybody has that story, right? That they always bring in. It's funny that yours is at the tail end of it. There's a Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
The reason that you're staying there is because of him, not that he was the driver that brought you in. I mean, I do completely agree with you with the high EQ aspect of it, but also having worked in the mentors program alongside him, right? I know that he has a very high IQ also as far as the business side of things go, so that he does see things, that it does give you that X factor that you're looking for in your business. So when you're in that room, you do feel that from him when he does share that. Now kind of changing the gears a little bit, you are a daughter of an immigrant, right? You were born here. I'm an immigrant, right? Well, one of the things that I can tell you, I'm sure that the stories kind of match there. Immigrants actually have an innate ability for entrepreneurship. Gary Vaynerchuk, he is an immigrant. His younger brother was born here, so that and you can add other people to that mix. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs' parents, real parents, and stuff like that. So that's you could actually look at that. And when you're an immigrant, it's part of your DNA. Maybe it's because of circumstance, because you don't know any better, and you go like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna just create my own job. Whether I'm in home construction, I'm doing gardening, or I open up a shop, or I get a food cart, doesn't matter.
Yep.
Nothing is less or more for me. From my perspective, it's all good work. It's an honest work. So when you have that, right, then you have you're born into it, right? You're now you're a son of an immigrant or a daughter of an immigrant. Your parents are pushing these entrepreneurship, responsibility type things on you, versus the school is telling you that you need to be productive and learn these education things. There's a lot of dichotomy. There's a lot of pull. I felt it. My kids have felt it from me. I can tell you that. I have two kids who are almost graduating college. They have felt it from me too. It has rubbed off on them. Some parts of it positively, other parts of it, they hate me for it. That's okay. I like balance. So I like the love and hate, both sides of it. So growing up in that sort of a household, how was that?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because we talk so frequently about entrepreneurship today, but it's like it's the hot term, right? My parents never talked about entrepreneurship, but when I look back at, what they did to bring money home and like the principles that I learned, that is very much what I learned, right? So my dad was a blue collar worker. He worked in the hotel industry. He had a union job with the Hotel Trades Association for decades, right? So like that was his job. My mom was stay at home, but my mom, my mom was an incredible woman, and we can talk about that. I think I'll probably bring her up a lot in particular on this topic. So my mom, school was not the thing for her. She came to this country when she was 12. Up until that point, she had had no formal education. She was disabled, right? She contracted polio at the age of
Oh
2.
wow.
And so for her, going to school, like nobody could carry her to and from school. And so she ended up not being able to go to school. So coming here was the first time that she had access to education, but she was so far behind her peers, right? So she came here, and the first thing was like learning English by immersion. She spent her first few years in the United States in a hospital undergoing like numerous surgeries to straighten out her legs, and then rehabilitation to learn how to walk with crutches and braces. So she learned English, but by the time she went to school, there was like so much for her to catch up on. She had the benefit of having a teacher who said to her like, hey, I would recommend you actually go to a trade school. So that's what she did. So for high school, she ended up going to a trade school, and she learned how to build and repair radios. And so she had a
Wow.
career doing that, right, in the 60s as a disabled Latina woman. So she had that job before she met my dad. Once they got married and they had kids, she decided to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. But my mom always had jobs, right? She was a stay-at-home mom, but she always did different things to earn money. So she was an Avon distributor at one point. I think she sold Shakily, she sold Mary Kay, she sold Herbalife. So she did her
Network
thing
marketing.
in network marketing, and
Yeah.
she was excellent at it because she was a phenomenal like storyteller, right? Like she only sold things that she believed in, that she had results with, and she sold by not being shy about telling her story, right? So like she was fantastic at it. But then there were also like, little side hustles. She knew how to crochet, and so she would crochet tablecloths and like doilies, and she would sell those to folks, right? So there was always something. My parents always encouraged us from a young age to be like responsible for money. So we didn't have much of an allowance, but we had something, right? And it was, if we wanted certain things, then we were taught that we had to save up to buy those things. They weren't just going to buy them for us like that. We didn't have that kind of money around. And so I learned really early on that I could bring in extra money by like getting jobs, right? So my sister and I started babysitting at very young ages, when babysitting looked like a neighbor bringing a kid over that was similar to our age, and what money that would have gone to my mom, she gave to us if we entertained the kids, right? So learned that really early on. I remember like reading comic books, and at the back of comic books, there used to be something called, I don't know if it still exists, the Olympic Sales Club. And you could sign up for it, and you would basically sell like holiday cards, gift wrap. And so, when I would get my catalog in September, I would go around and like pitch everybody in the family. I would visit neighbors and be like, hey, do you want to order your holiday cards? You can get your name printed on the envelope, right? That's an upsell. You can get your wrapping paper too. And like, if you order now, we can get you blah, 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 right? And I would get a percentage of like the sales that I brought in. So like I started doing that stuff really early on, but I never realized that I was learning the principles of like, there's always something that you can do, no matter of like your age, no matter of the limitations like you think you might have. There's always something that you can do to bring money home.
I mean, I love those stories with kid entrepreneurship, because the thing is, as we become adults, we start putting up walls, and we put
Mhm.
up excuses of why we don't want to do something,
Yeah.
right? Or why it's not going to work. In case of kids, it's just like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to do it, and they don't even realize they're doing
Nope.
it. That's phenomenal. I have my youngest niece. She actually is really good at arts and crafts. So she started creating these tiny little. It's not figurines; it's paper-based figurines. Think of it
Uh-huh.
that way. And she actually sells them. Yeah,
It's
and
great.
every time I go up, and she goes like, "Well, let me show you the new merchandise I've created." She actually starts putting it in front of me, and then she started explaining what the motivation was behind it, and why she was thinking, and what she was thinking, to kind of sell me and story tell. I find it phenomenal. I support her
Oh
to
yeah.
to that.
I
Like
used to do this school
it's,
chocolate.
the way to my heart is that, like, when a kid does it without any coaching, that's phenomenal. And to find that in my own niece, that's phenomenal for me.
Yeah.
And I feel really good about it. So kind of changing the gears there. Growing up, or even now, who are your North Stars? Who do you look up to when it comes to business, when it comes to entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth? It could be living, or somebody like an author that may have passed away.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna go back to my North Star has always been my mom, right? Like I started to talk about how magnificent a person I think she, was, right? My mom's not here with us. It's been almost 12
Mhm.
years now, so it'll be
Sorry
12
to hear
years.
that.
Thank you, but it'll be 12 years 12 years this month since she passed away. But the more that I like dig into her story and I remember like as I was growing up, I don't remember my mom having limitations, but obviously she did, right? Like she had physical limitations. We didn't have the opportunity in my house to say we couldn't do something, because how are you going to look this woman in the face who like raised her two daughters by herself, right? Like never had like help at home. She would tell the story of how like when my sister was born, right? My sister's the oldest. So when my sister was born, she had her first child. She had a little like bassinet that had wheels on it. And so like that's what she would use for my sister, because she could push that. She would like walk with the crutches, push it for the enough, ahead of her, and she could do that way. Just figuring out like how to, there was always a way around for her. And she was always like incredibly bold and used her voice and showed us how to stand up for ourselves, right?
Mhm.
She stood up to like discrimination, not just because of her ability, but also as a Latina woman. She defied a lot of odds, right? Like, and she did all of these things we take for granted. Only, I'm 43 years old. We take for granted like how much things have changed for women and in those few decades. For her to be a woman with a career, for her to be a disabled woman with a career, like she did those like
And
against all of that.
doing a technical job.
Oh my gosh, yes, right? Like we talk about wanting more women in technical jobs. Like she was doing it
STEM programs,
right? Like
right?
she was doing it decades ago. So yeah. So to me it's always the reminder. As I get older, I've had to remind myself that my mom and my dad accomplished like their American dream, and that I've had to set bigger dreams than they've had because I've outgrown them, right? Like we set goals and we have dreams, and like a lot of times we can achieve those pretty early on in our lifetimes. And so it's that constant reminder to like not be complacent and set bigger ones. And so my mom certainly did that, and I just have to remind myself of like constantly doing that.
No, I mean, I think that's a phenomenal foundation that your parents have built for you. Then you're taking the next step, right? It's a lot easier from then for starting at zero, right?
Yeah.
Where let's say if your parents were not, right? Let's say they were just employees and they were not into that at all, and you didn't have any kind of inspiration there, then you're starting at zero. You don't have any foundation.
Yep.
But here they're giving you that kind of a boost, and it almost becomes part of your DNA that you're taking that next step from there. Well, one thing that I have found very fascinating, I live in Queens, New York, and if anyone knows anything about Queens, New York, I think Queens, New York is the melting pot of the world, right? uh, you have every culture, every religion, every
Yep.
ethnicity, every mix that you can think of. Other people can claim it. We have it here.
Up
In a bill,
until like a year ago, I think it had the most diverse zip code in the country.
exactly. So, I mean, my neighbors are Jackson Heights and Corona and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Within a few steps, you come across many, many different types of people. One thing that I have seen, even though I look Latino, I'm not Latino. Yeah. By the way, there's an interesting story there, a little bit of a segue. When I came to this country and I was on the 7 train, which is the train you take from Queens to go into New York City, for the first time I was taking it. And when the crowd started coming in, got picked up from Corona, 103rd Street, Jackson Heights, there were these ladies that were asking me for direction in Spanish. They
Mhm.
thought that I was Latino, right? And then, funny enough, when my uncles took me to school to get admitted to high school, that when I went to the language department, they said that what foreign language would you like to? I said, what do you have? They said, oh, French, Italian, Spanish. I said, Spanish sounds good because everybody thinks I'm Spanish. I might as well take it. So actually, I took 3-4 years of Spanish high school Spanish, up to I think I may have taken AP Spanish. It was such a long time ago. It's funny that it's just that. So,
Well, Latinos can look like anything.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and if somebody thinks that, I find it flattering when people associate me with their culture, their kind. I find it very inviting. So I never correct anyone. You have seen me actually even at Vayner. When somebody thinks I'm something, I don't correct them, because the thing is, it's not a negative thing. They're not name calling me. They're just saying that you're one of us. So, okay, I'm one of you. If you think I'm Italian, I'm Italian. If you think I'm Turkish, I'm Turkish. If you if you think I'm Chinese, I'm Chinese. It doesn't matter. It's nothing negative to me. There is no negative in it. I find it very welcoming. But having grown in Queens, I was raised here. Having grown up here, one thing common that I've seen in Queens is, this is just from my visual aspect of me, right? And you can back it up with actual facts. I see more women entrepreneurship in the Latinx community, and it really over indexes, right? Then more than Latinos, male ownership of these businesses. I mean, I can tell you, my when I used to have hair, there's a reason why I wear a hat. It's not that I look cool. Nobody hires me because I'm cool or pretty. When I used to have hair, actually, I used to go to this hairdresser when I was at her salon since I was in high school. That's how long I've known Gina. That's her name, right? She's not that far from me here in Queens. So she owns it, and even other people that rent out the chairs, they tend to be Latinas also, and they're running their businesses within that salon. But she owns it, and she takes a cut and stuff. And now, since I don't really have hair, I don't really go there. But she knows my kids. All I have to do is pick up my phone, and she takes my wife and kids for their haircut appointments, and does a great job with it. I've seen that over-index quite a bit on the women in the women bucket than the male bucket. Any thoughts there? Is that just unique to Queens, or is there a much more universal thing there?
I don't think that's unique to Queens, right? Like, I believe if you look at the growth in entrepreneurship in the last 5 years, it is driven by Black women and Latinx women, right? So those are the facts for sure. Like, they are driving the launch of new businesses disproportionately in this country. My thoughts on sort of why Latina women in particular is conjecture, right? Like, it's sort of based on like my observations and my experience. But my thought is, right, that Latina women generation after generation, like not just here in the United States, but in the countries of origin, have taken on the role of caring for the home, right? Like sort of caring for the family, but also being contributors. So I feel like, if I look at my own family, right, like my great grandmother is who raised my mom and her sister and their cousins of the same generation. And I heard stories growing up of my great grandmother who, had her children. She had 6 children from 2 different fathers. I don't believe that she was married to either, so she kept her maiden name all of those years, but also heard stories about her entrepreneurship and how she would save up money so that she could buy a side of beef, and she would make jerky, right? And she would toast corn, and she would make this toast corn and jerky like mix that she would then take to the market and sell. And then that she would have money for like taking care of the family until she did that again, right? So she would then take a portion of that money, put it aside so that she could do the same thing. And that's how she took care of the family. Like, that was the main thing, and she would do other things. And so, right, like now you're talking like, 3 generations ago already, like taking care of the family and juggling different jobs. And the thing that we don't often talk about in terms of entrepreneurship and women is that entrepreneurship, like being your own boss, also creates flexibility in when you do the work and how you do the work. And so I believe, right, like that Latinas have a propensity for it because they're taking on a lot, and being your own boss gives you that flexibility to continue to do that, to continue to like play the roles that we've traditionally played with family, but not compromising on what we do, like to bring, right, to like create greater like security for our families. And now with, with generations, I think if you look at the immigration component of it, now it's also about like building wealth, right? Like now it's about like creating a brighter future for our children, or whoever is gonna be the recipient of what we have grown here. And so I think that that's part of why like so many Latinas are starting businesses themselves. Not only that, but we also see a lot of like despair, or like a lack of products and services that speak to our experiences, right? Like despite the fact that we are a significant portion of the population and only growing, right? Like if you look at population data, the trend has not changed. It has been said for a very long time that the Latino population is significant. I believe the stat is by 2060, 1 in every 4 people will be of Latino descent. Like
Wow.
you can't ignore that, right? And so like the more of us there are, the more that we all look, right? Like as consumers, we all look for the products and services that connect with us. And culture is a significant way of connecting. And so like when you have a need and you don't see it being met, you create it.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, even though those numbers have been going towards that, every time I go into a supermarket, whenever I do, I've not been to a supermarket in a while now, because I use online because of my background,
Yeah.
But when I go into a supermarket, what I find it very funny is that there's one aisle that's called international foods,
Yes.
and everybody's food is in that one aisle. Doesn't matter.
It's the best aisle in the grocery store.
You could be Middle Eastern, you could be Indian,
Jewish.
spices,
Yeah.
Jewish, Muslim, doesn't matter. Spanish, Goya is in there too, So there's one aisle compared to, and so in some neighborhoods where you would think that maybe you should put up 4 aisles, maybe, because
you need
your
to go to.
population, like in Queens, it doesn't make sense for you to put one
Yeah.
aisle, and then usually you go in there, it's empty.
It's why I love grocery stores like Patel Brothers in Queens, right? And
Yeah.
I love the Fiesta markets in Texas, because it's just like, yes, everything. Everything I want everywhere in the store.
Yeah, not that it's just one aisle,
No.
and you go in there, it's busy and it's empty because everybody bought it already. It's gone. But it also points to a bigger opportunity, I believe. You said that creating that opportunity, but when you look at companies like CPG companies, pretty big companies, right? Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Mondelez, any of these guys, the extent of it I've seen is the salsa and the some sort of tortilla chips, right? That's it. But there's an opportunity to actually bring a lot more a lot more flavor to that food aisle by actually creating different types of foods that could be consumed. And because we are, to your point, 1 in 4 in the next few years, if you have that adoption started in 2020, in the next 6 years you would corner the market by having that. I think that's one side of it, but it's also representation of talent on screen, for example, right? That's another challenge.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, there was a huge issue, as you probably know, that people of different colors and ethnicities would not be actually whether it was Academy Awards or anything like that. I'm not picking on just Academy Awards. I'm saying all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that they didn't have that much representation of different ethnicities and things of that nature, let alone when you move that forward, what about ads representing people that represent United States, and who we are, and or at least certain demographics where that it's heavily populated. So the TV ad or the Facebook ad you're running in New York, for example, you could mix it up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that the biggest challenge in those areas is that it's not just about having ads that have Latino actors in them, right? Or that have a Latino storyline, or having TV shows or movies that like it's about representation at the ideation stage.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that's why we continue to get it wrong, is because we're just like,
afterthought.
right. Like there's a separate multicultural budget for advertising, and it's the smallest of all the budgets, right?
And it should not be a checkbox either.
No, like we
Yeah.
have this, we continue to have this conversation about like general market. What is that? Right? Like if I look at the general market is diverse. And so that means that I should have like diversity of thought and representation at the ideation table, at like the discussion phase of it all the time. Right? Not like, oh, we did one Hispanic or Latino ad this year, we're good. Like, so you only want, right? Like you only want Latinx people to buy from you once a year. I'm pretty sure you probably want them shopping your brand all of the time. And so you can't expect success with different consumers if you're only speaking to them once a year.
Yeah, I mean, so now, actually, just to kind of staying within it, one of the reports I had read, I don't know how true it is in case of the Latinx demographics, right? But generally speaking, venture capital, for example, right? Allocation of venture capital funding, male versus female. I had read in this report that women founded startups actually get less funded, right, by venture capital than male. When you take that further down into Latinx, and then we can talk about male versus female within Latinx funding of these companies. Have you seen any kind of patterns there?
Yeah, they get less of the funding, right? And it's that's the basic of it, right? But it's because you cater towards women doesn't mean that you don't still hold bias, right? When it comes to race and ethnicity, we don't do enough work in the corporate sector to address bias that exists, right? Like we sort of shy away from those conversations because they make us uncomfortable. Like you can't assume that you will have diversity in terms of like your investing in businesses if you don't actually set the objective of doing that, right? And so like intention doesn't do the job, like planning and actual strategy and tactics and measuring and trying to do better with every, right, like all of the time. That's how you actually achieve it, not just by saying like, yeah, we want to do that, right? Like how are you going to do that and how are you intentionally doing that? And so like there have been the creation of funds particularly geared towards people of color, right? Like women, Black entrepreneurs, Latina entrepreneurs. So I've been a big fan of Arlen Hamilton and right, her creation of Backstage Capital. She saw that void, right? She saw like a lot of businesses that were being founded by entrepreneurs of color and not receiving equitable funding from VC funds. And she found investors who were looking to address that, right? But she also saw that organizations who are diverse in how they operate have tremendous success. And so it wasn't just about like doing something that was nice. She saw like a business opportunity there. And so they are harder to find, but you're definitely starting to see more and more funds. Caper Capital out of Oakland is one that I've watched, right? Who is also committed to funding, entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds who are also like addressing needs in diverse communities. And so they are putting their money where their mouth is. It's not just about intention, it is about action, right? If you go the crowdsourcing fund instead of the venture fund, like you see organizations like I Fund Women, right, who are also starting to address that. And just seeing more, I think Backstage, Arlen is also working on that as a crowdfunding, right? So, or like a micro investment. So also creating opportunities. Part of it is when you look at our communities, right? I talked about generational wealth and building generational wealth. That hasn't been something that we've been able to achieve robustly. And so now you see more conversations about like, how do people like me, right? Who weren't, I didn't have parents who had enough capital laying around that they could even think about investing. That's not something I learned growing up. And so now that I'm at a point in my career, like that is an opportunity, like it's a whole other education to start thinking about how you're going to start doing that. And because I'm Latina, because, I believe that I should be giving back to my community, I'm interested in investing in businesses that meet the needs of my community, right? Or that have founders who, have overcome that. Because to your point, right, like when I look at when I look at first generation and I look at immigrants, like I believe in those entrepreneurs. And so I think my money is going to go further if I invest in those kind of founders. And so, right, I think that I'm part of a generation of professional Latinas and Latinx, professionals in general who are looking to give back in that way. So I think you're only going to continue to see those types of like funds increase and that type of investment increase.
I mean, I also see it as a lost opportunity for other funds, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
if you've read about a big lost opportunity by quite a lot of the by the way, that banging is my parrot in the background. I apologize to you, and he just sees me standing here
He
and
wants
not
to be
talking.
part of the conversation.
Yeah, so he's banging on his cage to let him out. I think it's a lost opportunity, and I'll give you an example of it. Jack Ma
Yeah.
of Alibaba, he was rejected by every venture capital in the United States. New York, California, doesn't matter. I can list out all of the venture capital because they did not think that the middle class in China would be able to afford anything. talk about a lost opportunity. Like this is the ignorance actually in that case actually was very, very costly, to not invest in Jack Ma. So but I think it's not the story is not just limited to Jack Ma. It could be a person of any ethnicity that brings in something that doesn't look like the norm, right? And it just represents an incredible opportunity, right? I'll give you an example. If and you're from New York City, so this is, and anyone who has visited New York City knows this. All the halal carts that you see, the halal carts initially were meant to be food for Muslim people to go and buy it because they wanted to have access to their food. Right. Halal carts are now a staple of everybody's food. It's a lunch break and dinner, basically for anyone for $7 you can get great meal, that's satisfying. So I think it's just looking at that and extending that sort of a thing out. I think it's just a lost opportunity in my view, right? When you're looking at and when you're looking at your culture specifically, which by the way, I do want to address one thing in there because it irks me when people think of me like this too. They think that it's just tortilla and salsa. Right, it's not, right? There's so much more to it, and the thing that I wanted to bring up that irks me is when somebody boxes me into one label, whatever that label is, right? And when anyone talks about Latinos and Latinas and Latinx, even with the entrepreneurship, they think it's one bucket. Can you educate us on how many different what's the diversity there?
Yeah. So you're talking about 22 plus countries of origin, right? That aren't all unified by language. Spanish is the predominant, right, language, but you also have countries where Portuguese is spoken or French is spoken, right? So language isn't the only unifier, because even if you look at all the countries where Spanish is spoken, right, like there are dialects and the accents are different, the slang is different. I growing up, so my father was from Chile and my mom from Peru, but I grew up in New York City, which when I was growing up, Puerto Ricans made up like most of the Latino community in New York City. It now looks very different and you have so many people from so many different countries, but slang in Chile for a baby is a guagua. Slang in Puerto Rico, like guagua means bus. So we're not even completely unified by like language. Right, you're talking about different immigration patterns, right? So like you have Latinos in the United States whose families have always lived here, because parts of the United States were originally Mexico. So, right, you might have heard the phrase, like, we didn't cross the border crossed us. Like, legitimately, that happened to so many families who are American families, but lived, and have lived in the same place. So you look at places like New Mexico and Arizona and California and Colorado, like, all of that was Mexico. And so people have lived there for generations. They didn't actually immigrate here, right? Like, the country there where they lived became owned by a different country. So there's that. And then you have people who, have come here in the last few years. And then, like, there's this massive, like, diversity of immigration experience within that. Our reasons for immigrating here, or our parents' reasons, or our grandparents' reasons for immigrating here, are vastly different, right? Like, you have people who may have come from Chile during the Pinochet regime, and so they were actually fleeing a right-wing government. And then you look at other places, right? Like, you look at the people who have come from Venezuela in the last, like, 5 years. They've come and they're fleeing a left extreme government. So, like, they don't align. Those people probably don't align politically, right? The big takeaway when it comes from the Latino community is, like, stop trying to treat us all the same, right? Like, actually get to know, like, it is different. And if you grew up in the Southwest versus if you grew up in California versus if you grew up, like, in New York, very different if you grew up in New York City versus growing up, like, in upstate New York. Like, we as humans like generalizations because they give us a basis of, like, understanding and a starting point. But as we continue, right, to, like, marry different folks, like, my husband is Jewish, grew up in Queens. His experience couldn't be more different than mine, right? Like, so try to understand us as a couple. Like, at the end of the day, the more diversity we have, the more, like, intermarriage we have, right? Like, the more that we intermix, the less we are going to be able to use generalizations to understand, like, how to speak to people, how to market to people, how to sell to people.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
To reduce the banging, I had to turn off my microphone, but he's not stopping. He's very aggressive.
Aggressive banger.
Yeah. I actually have named him just like Steve Jobs. My parrot's name is Parrot. I try to simplify my life, So when it actually that's interesting, because when I was looking at what I wanted to say, well, I'm having a lot of senior moments, by the way, Maribel. So I guess this is when I'm aging. When I look at, like, resources, right? When resources and availability of resources, when you're a woman entrepreneur, let alone, like, let's say if you don't have your English skills, you don't speak English that well, but you're a good business person, because business is universal, just like math, What sort of resources have you seen, at least in the United States, that are available? And maybe your familiarity is more with New York, that you see being available to Latina entrepreneurs in New York and in the United States?
Yeah, all major cities, right, have small business bureaus, and many of those have programs specifically for women. Some of those have programs specifically, like, for women of color. So first and foremost, find out, like, what's available to you for free in your city. The other thing is, like, the internet and Google, right? Like, the reason that I love social media, the reason that I love the internet, is really the access that it has given us to information and the ease with which we can get access to that information. I have also seen in the last, 10 years, a growing number of, like, communities where people are coming together and forming communities to support each other. And so, while in college, I remember often, hearing conversation describing, Latino communities as sort of like the barrel of crabs, where it's just like, we keep pulling each other down because we think that opportunity and success is limited. And so, we're all like vying for the same thing. That is not the trend that I have seen in the last 10 years. I see greater support of each other, and a greater understanding and a commitment to like success. The pie of success grows, right? And so like it is not limited. And the more that we support each other through that, the better it is for all of us, holistically. So yeah, like in a senior moment, right? Like I want to make sure that I answered your question, but yeah, like I think, use the internet, look for those communities. I'm part of a community called We All Grow. So hashtag We All Grow. They started as an organization that was like dedicated to Latina bloggers, but has broadened out and is really for like Latina professionals and Latina entrepreneurs. They have a free community that anyone can join. And so, in there, people are constantly posting, like in the last like 7 months due to COVID, people have been posting grant opportunities and like resource opportunities. They've been hosting office hours, right? So where people are coming in and sort of like sharing their expertise. I'm on the board of advisors for an organization called Luminary that's based here in New York City, or was based here in New York City, and is really now like a global community geared towards women, again, both in the corporate sector and also entrepreneurs, right? I've seen lawyers who are part of that community offering their expertise to like support people through these times. And so like find your community, right? Like find the people that are going to be like your ride or die. So like find a broader community and then find your smaller community within that. Find your group of, fellow business women where you're going to support each other. Ideally, you have different strengths. And so you're all adding something distinct to that group. But it is much easier to achieve success when you've got like the right infrastructure. And as like entrepreneurship can be incredibly lonely, and that makes it really hard. And so like, you don't necessarily have to grow that within your company immediately. Like if your company is a company of one, that's okay. How do you build a leadership circle with other women who are trying to achieve success the way that you are, and how do you support yourself through it?
Yeah, the one thought I had was like, because I get involved in so many conversations, whether it's over Twitter or over LinkedIn, right? When people reach out to me for advice, I see that there's a pattern to it, right? It's always the same 10 things people are asking me. What do you see yourself, or when these Latina or Latino entrepreneurs who look up to you, what are they asking you? What sort of advice are they asking you for?
Yeah, I often see questions about like, how do I get more attention to this, right? So like oftentimes really focused on like, how do I get more podcast listeners, or how do I get more followers on this thing? And I always jump to, well, what's your goal? Like the goal in and of itself, like to have the goal of more podcast listeners or to have the goal of more followers, to me comes across as an empty goal, right? Like, why do you want more listeners? Why do you want more followers? Like, what is it? What is the problem that you're trying to solve in the world, or what is the thing that you are trying to achieve, right? Like, are you aiming to have more followers because like you believe you have the solution for business, or because you believe that you can truly like help people like find success in their lives, or because you have the best recipe for mac and cheese, whatever it is, right? Like you're trying to, why do you need those followers? And so I think oftentimes the conversations I have are pushing people to really like be clear on like what it is their goal is, right? Like, why do you want to start this business? Not just that you want to start it, but like, what is the objective here? Are you looking to start a business because you want to sell it? Or are you looking to start a business because you want to run a business, because that's the thing that like brings you excitement, and because you want to start a business that your kids might take over, right? Like those are really different goals, and the way that you grow your business is going to be different based on like which one you've established your goals. So I would say that's usually the typical conversation. The other one that's really common advice is like people don't tell their stories. People, right? Like we talked about generalizations, like, and how we use generalizations, like in entrepreneurship. I think in business in general, like generalizations don't help right now. The choices are vast, and the way that you stand out in the crowd is actually like a more precise story, in my opinion, right? And so it is really, it's pretty common for me to read business pitches, right? Like sometimes people are just like, can I send this to you? And so I'll read them and sort of give my feedback, and they'll give you their idea for their business, and they won't actually tell you who they are. Right. And it's just like, if you're looking to use that business pitch for an investor is investing in whether or not they believe in your ability to bring that business to fruition and make it profitable. And you haven't actually told them anything about who you are and what your capabilities are. So I would say those are the two most common.
You know, there are so many recipes, right? Every chef cooks it differently,
Yeah.
right? So if you need to tell your story about like when you make that apple pie, why is it different? You know,
Right.
and it's not shouldn't be just I make it with love. Maybe yours has cinnamon in it, you know,
Right.
whatever it is, or you undercook it or overcook it certain way,
I
and
use
that gives
cotton
it
candy instead of sugar, right? Like
exactly. Exactly. What's that? What is your angle that makes this so different and so special?
right.
Actually, while you were saying that, what I find also very interesting, people who are immigrants here, they have a different lens, and let me explain to you what that lens is. Right, most Americans who are here in the United States rarely get to travel outside of the United States, so they don't really get the visibility of what the other cultures look like. They might see it on Discovery Channel, maybe, you know, or maybe on YouTube, but experiencing it by yourself is very different. However, if you come from an immigrant family and you can travel, you typically, most likely, you're going to go back to the country that you know either your parents are from or you have friends or something like that to kind of visit it. You know, the native country or whatever. But I find it also funny, especially with people with that sort of an immigrant background, when they approach me for an advice about business, right? And I look at them and go like, okay, what's your ethnicity? First of all, they get offended. Go like, no, I can tell you I'm Turkish. You know, there's nothing offensive about this. Just tell me, you know. So then they tell me, and I go like, okay, where are your parents from? Oh, they're from Venezuela. Okay, they're from Venezuela. Awesome. Um, does Grubhub exist in Venezuela? They find it odd when I ask that question, right? No, it doesn't. Grubhub is a New York thing or a United States thing. It doesn't exist. Okay, go create that. That's what Jack Ma did. I mean, Amazon existed here. I mean, eBay existed here. He saw it. He said, wow, this is great. This is a great business model. Let me apply it to a billion people, right? So there are amazing opportunities. Like this is the kind of the lens that I'm talking about when you're an immigrant. When you see those kinds of things, you go like, oh my God, this is a lab. This is a
And
lab
it
with
works the other way around too, right? Like, so what's that thing you grew up with that isn't readily
missing
accessible
here.
to
Yeah.
everyone, right? Like, you know, what's the food from your country? Or like, yeah, I think about boba tea, right? Like freaking love bubble tea. Growing up, like I grew up in New York City. Growing up, you didn't see as many bubble tea places as you do now, but it's sort of that combination of, right, like, you know, you have people who have traveled to other places and experienced that, and then they come here and you don't find that. So like there's a market for a lot of things here, you know, in terms of bringing experiences from other places and bringing it here too.
Totally, it goes both ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want to take a whole business model, and I think I forgot their names. There are two brothers. I believe they're in Europe. They literally look at the businesses that work, the business models that work in the United States. They treat it almost like a lab, and then they take it and replicate it for Europe.
Yep.
And then they figure out all the intricacies of Germany is different than Czech Republic and France and Italy and stuff like that. But they're replicating it, and that's their model, and they have become multimillionaires, right? Like that, you know. So when you're in from that, you're lucky to be, from a diverse culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And growing with it, if you can look at it from that lens, I think it just gives you a phenomenal opportunity for you to actually take that thing, whether you're bringing it from outside in or you're taking it from here and exporting it out somewhere else.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, right? Like travel is a way to achieve that, but also like reading and just immersing yourself in other cultures is an important way to get that, right? Like great ideas come from stepping out of your own experience, right? Like you might, if you're limited, right? Like if you have only ever lived here and you haven't had a whole lot of exposure, then what are you doing to give yourself greater exposure? Right, like that, the opportunity is in exposing yourself, like making yourself uncomfortable and exposing yourself to other cultures and other ways of thinking about things.
I mean, there are so many travel bloggers that have probably garnered over a billion, multi-billion views on YouTube. If you have the time, use it as research. Go through it.
Absolutely.
Go through it and go like, wow, this person went through all of Asian countries. What am I going to learn from it? Treat it more like a class, not that you're doing it for entertainment, but
Yeah,
you're taking notes down, and you could actually, that becomes an opportunity by
absolutely.
itself, So, I mean, thank you so much, Maribel, for sharing so much of your knowledge. And but what I do is I always ask my guests to give me their number one $100,000 insight that would inspire Latinx women entrepreneurs to take that step. What is that number one for you?
Don't try to be somebody else, right? So like, don't try to recreate what someone else has done. Appreciate you for who you are, like appreciate your story, embrace it wholeheartedly. That is the thing that will make your business unique.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maribel. And thank you all, and thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights into this. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm actually I'm at awe that you're here. And
Thanks, Sabir.
and thank you, audience, for joining us today. Sorry about all the banging. It seems like now the parrot is like more fed up with the banging and stop banging now. So that's why I was muting my microphone, so that at least when you talked, it was not interfering with it. I apologize for the noise there. But thank you, audience, for joining us today. And until next time, we have a lot more episodes planned. Tune in next week for another episode of This Week with Sabir. Thank you, Maribel.
Thanks, Sabir.